Hey guys and girls, and welcome back to the #1 channel on real estate. Now before we get started, make sure to hit that like button, and if you enjoy the video, make sure you subscribe to be part of the Daily Hit family. Now let's get back to the video. So you want to find a rent-to-own home, but you're not sure where to start. Well, renting a home can be very stressful. You're never quite sure if you're going to be able to afford the next rent payment, and sometimes it feels like the landlords are just out to get you. Why not try rent-to-own? This option allows you to find property that you love and gives you the time you need to save up for a down payment. Here are 4 tips to help make the process as smooth as possible. 4 tips to find or create a rent-to-own home. Do you feel emotionally ready to buy a home, but your lack of funds or credit score has prevented you from renting? There is a middle ground, a rent-to-own home. This is a godsend for renters who want to acquire equity in a property, but don't want to overcome the difficulties associated with purchasing a house outright, such as saving for a down payment or taking out a mortgage. So how may you go from renting to becoming a homeowner in this ideal situation? Read on for the stages to go through and dangers to avoid when searching for a rent-to-own house. Number 1. How to find a rent-to-own home. While you may locate houses to rent near you online, locating a property owner willing to participate in a rent-to-own arrangement might take some additional effort. This is probably about 5% of the overall market, says agent RJ Avery of Richardson, Texas. They are frequently found in smaller cities or towns, particularly mid-sized places where real estate is not particularly appealing or competitive. In short, you may need to look for housing to rent and then purchase in areas that don't have everything you want, such as a good school system or delicious restaurants on the block. However, these are the most likely places to discover rent-to-own properties. In areas like this, a property owner might be more eager to sign a good purchase price rather than provide a lease option and work with renters. Number 2. Locate a reluctant landlord. The greatest opportunity for you is to find property owners who were pushed into becoming landlords, i.e., they attempted to sell their house but failed, and then began renting it out instead. These landlords by default own just one property and may be eager to sell it through a rent-to-own agreement, as opposed to real estate investors who may have many homes and are dedicated to making money. They may be prepared to work with you to negotiate a purchase price that works for you in the rent-to-own agreement, allowing you to get a low-interest loan. Furthermore, typical rent-to-own agreements stipulate that repairs and improvements be carried out by the tenant. As with all terms, this is of course negotiable. But this might influence hesitant sellers who want to minimize their landlord's responsibilities and go with a lease agreement or rent-to-own agreement. Number 3. Know your options. There are several components and potential elements in a rent-to-own agreement, but for the most part, these agreements follow similar basic principles. The potential buyers and sellers agree on the following before signing a lease or entering in a rent-to-own agreement. A timetable for moving from renting to owning that works for both the landlord and buyer. This could be anywhere from a few months to up to 5 years. The purchase price of the house, either locked in or to be determined by the end of the lease. To secure the right to purchase a property, a buyer pays an option fee, which is a non-refundable deposit paid in addition to rent, but usually is credited upon the sale. It's similar to a down payment on a mortgage, and this is typically anywhere from 2.5% to 7% of the home's price. The home's rent. The majority of landlords charge slightly more than the market rate. That way, a portion of rent will include equity in the purchased property, typically between 25% to 50% of the total rent. Are you prepared to take out a mortgage? Owning a home is an exciting experience, but buying a house entails a lot more work than renting real estate. In order to buy a property outright, the renter or buyer must first be pre-approved for a mortgage, which includes a credit check. The buyer will then be in charge of making mortgage payments each month, just like paying rent. But each payment takes them a little closer to being a homeowner. Not doing so could harm your credit score and lead to a potential foreclosure. Number 4. Assess the risks. There are 2 kinds of lease options, a lease purchase and a lease option. Buyers are locked by the end of the lease with a lease purchase agreement. If you don't follow the lease agreement, you'll have to return all the rent you've paid to the landlord over the years, which is essentially your down payment, as well as risk legal action over the lease. Buyers who pick this choice should be certain about their long-term goals and financial situation. There are a few things that can happen in the buyer's life and job that might influence whether he or she is and wants to be able to buy this home, sign the lease, and make the mortgage payments. A lease option contract is less rigid. In this lease agreement, the buyer may choose whether or not to purchase the property at the end of the lease period, and the landlord must do so. This lease agreement provides you the option to opt out of the purchase within the time frame specified, which is a welcome addition if you're unsure about the purchase price or whether you want to rent to own in the first place. Even in this situation, you could lose your deposit or equity. Before you sign a lease, be sure that you want to go rent to own in order to buy the property and that the purchase price is appropriate for you. Is rent to own the right option for you? Only you and your landlord can figure out which lease option is best for your situation. If you're entering a home you like and want to improve your credit score and/or save up for a down payment, it might be a good option. Even so, in most typical rent-to-own situations, it's usually preferable to buy outright, but it is a case-by-case, according to Avery. It's always a good idea to contact an attorney or a real estate broker with experience if you're unsure about anything. The real estate market is changing. It's not as easy to find a home and go through the traditional buying process, because many homes are rented first before they can be purchased. And this video gave you a brief overview of how rent-to-own works. As real estate prices continue to skyrocket, it might make more sense for those who don't have the cash or credit score needed to buy a house outright to consider renting one with an option to purchase later on down the road. If you're interested in finding out whether rent-to-own could work for your family's needs, I hope this video assisted you in locating a rent-to-own home. Thanks so much for watching.